welcome to the Red Barrels podcast. We're still going. It's episode 19. And in fact, right up here at the top, I'm going to inform our listeners of an incredibly important event coming up, which is that at the very least, when we record the next episode, it will be, depending on the day we record, either exactly the 1 year anniversary or approximately the 1 year anniversary of the first recording of the Red Barrel podcast. I do apologize because it was my first time ever editing a podcast, which you may be able to tell if you go back and listen to it. It took me a whole week to do that. So it may not, the actual release of it may not align, but our next episode will be our 1 year anniversary.
And
Just
we have
get
a
ready
special
for it.
episode planned. Hopefully, everything works out.
True, it's true. It
Little
all
tease
works
next
out.
time.
Little
Little
tease. We're not going
tease.
to go further, but secret plans are afoot for a spectacular, full, brand new 1 year anniversary episode, which I think it might kill a certain percentage of our audience. It's going to be so shocking and astonishing. Don't worry.
That sounds like a
you,
threat.
the listener, will no,
I'm not
don't
sure
worry.
about that.
The person who's listening to it right now, you're going to be fine.
You always
I'm just
take
saying,
it
a certain
one
percentage
step
Just
too
one
far,
step
don't
too
you,
far,
Alex?
man.
A certain
Just-
percentage will probably die. And we've just got to...
that's a risk.
Crazy.
Exactly.
Why
that's
would
just
anyone listen to a podcast with such a high mortality rate?
Because they themselves are going to be fine. But just a certain percentage are going to sadly perish from the
So just all the listeners that
amazement.
don't have main character energy.
You can't make an omelette without breaking a few eggs. We all
Without
know
cracking
that.
a few Gregs, can't make
Exactly.
an omelet. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm.
You've heard them. It's not just me. We have our two usual hosts. First up, returning from illness. Who is it?
It's me, Soph. It's me,
Hooray.
Sophie. Yes, I'm
Hooray.
back from illness. I had sinusitis, so I was ill for like 4 weeks. Finally had to go to the doctor and get some steroids for my nose. And I'm feeling a lot
Got
better
big beefy
now.
nose now. Big
beefy nose. You
roided
guys
out
haven't even
nose.
seen this nose. It's so... Does your nose even lift, bro? Mine
Exactly.
certainly does.
Very swollen nose.
I'm also joined by... We're joined by somebody else who was here last week who doesn't have a big beefy nose like myself. Who's that?
Thank you. Yes, it's me, Ed, with my little dainty nose.
Little dainty nose.
Good to be back for episode 19 of the Red Barrels podcast. Thank you, dear listener, for tuning back in.
Ed, I think your nose is it's well and appropriately toned for your build. Actually, I think
Stop it,
you
flirt.
haven't descended to let's say morally dubious chemical compounds to falsely build
I
up
gotta
your
get
nose.
those gains, man. Gotta get them gains. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, to be
Right.
fair, I mean, looking at Sophie, it's clearly worth it, right? If you
It's true.
if your nose could be that big, you
that
do it
nose
too.
is incredible. I mean, I can see it on this Discord window, and I'm blown away.
Thanks.
So just look forward to that, listener. If you watch our stream, get ready for that nose. I think we can wrap up nose chat now. I think we've covered that on the podcast.
I do have one
Shall I,
bone to pick from the fact
bones
that
are
I was
being picked
missing
now.
last
Oh,
week.
God.
Noses and
Which
bones
is
are being
that
picked.
you chose to cover, I understand, of course, the show must go on, etc., etc. But the fact that you chose to cover the game Ghost of Yote, which
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you remember, dear listener and dear podcast host, but I actually lived in Japan
Oh yeah, we have an expert here.
for 2 years.
Well, maybe if you'd mentioned it even once, Sophie,
Not
then we would have
only
remembered.
did I live in Japan for 2 years, I specifically lived in Hokkaido
Wow.
for 2 years. I've even seen Yote with my own eyes.
Wow.
So I think the fact that you decided to discuss that podcast and the Ainu, who I have previously discussed on an episode of this podcast.
All right, I know expert right over here. Just
Yeah, you mispronouncing it several times. I'm joking. It's fine. I forgive it. But also I don't. I'm just offended, I'm just offended, and I think you missed out.
Well, I do apologize, Sophie. What can I say? That's when I finished the game and you were ill. That's the reality of the fact.
Yeah,
That's how much I could have done about it. And to be honest, we did actually discuss the fact that you lived specifically in what in the game they call Etzo.
Ezo,
And
actually.
Etzo. Whatever. You're the expert, not me.
This is the kind of stuff we were missing out on, Alex.
Yeah,
And
this is
and,
the joy you could have lived through.
I realised I was only about 80% sure that was a bit of Japan you lived in, so he chose not to mention it on the basis that what if I was
Well,
wrong and I embarrassed myself?
It was.
It was.
I
And
lived
I can only
40 minutes
apologise.
from Sapporo, which is famous for its beer outside of Japan. But
Oh, yeah,
inside
heard of it.
Japan, it's famous for its Sapporo curry. Curry
Wow.
soup, which is really, really good. And I miss it. But anyway, it's fine. It's fine. I forgive it. But
But you
just
won't
know that I
forget
will
it.
not forget it. Yes.
No. How many people on Samurai Revenge quests did you know when you were living in Hokkaido?
Like 5.
5 of them. Yeah, it seems
Yeah,
pretty
like
common.
5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now 6.
Well, no, actually
Yeah.
now 3, because 2 of them died tragically
Oh, right.
on the revenge quest. As
Oh my
you do
God.
on a
Happens a
revenge
lot.
quest.
Happened a lot to me in
Yeah.
that game. It's not that easy.
I believe it.
Sometimes the jumping, the magnetic jumping glitched out, and I just went straight off a cliff. And I'm sure that happens a lot in real life.
That happens a lot in real life. You see it all the
Yeah.
time. Like on your
Yeah.
way
Highly
to work,
magnetized.
you just
Yeah.
see people just flying around, man.
Just
But like not in a
pinging
fun
out- pinging
Spider-Man
around.
way. Just like in a
Yeah. It's
like
common.
a
It's common. Everyone in
gravitational
Japan
pull,
knows it. Everyone in Japan knows it. Even I went on holiday there, and I saw at least 4 people do that. So yeah. Well, on that deep and very sincere apology from me, we are going to get onto some game. And first up, again, straight in from illness, it's going to be Sofie here to talk about the game they are calling Vampire: The Masquerade: Bloodlines: 2.
Yes. Genuinely had to look up whether or not this was developed by a Japanese developer because of the way it has so many colons. Because that is like a thing that they just love to do.
They do love
Where
it.
it's like
They do
the
love it.
only thing it's missing is like colon and then a series of numbers, like 365 days or something. Other
Yeah.
Kingdom Hearts. Yeah, ridiculous title. So I will lay a couple of things out right off the bat, which is that I have not played the original Vampires the Masquerade.
Man, that's horrible. Unbelievable.
It was a little bit
How you call
before
yourself
my
a gamer?
time. It's before my time, I think.
I thought you were a
So-
huge vampire fan.
I am a huge vampire
Genuinely, I
fan,
was
but I
a
think
bit
I
turns
mostly
out-
realized
It
in
turns
my
out
adulthood.
this was all a masquerade. Thank you very much.
Wow.
Then
That's the
wasn't
what?
See you
I
next episode.
actually
That's
living the
podcast.
real fandom? If
Mm.
I'm the one doing the
Ah.
I'm the one keeping the masquerade. You guys are
Yeah.
violating it all the time.
Wow.
I'm living it, okay? Yeah, so the main reason this game piqued my interest was like basically at the end of October. I guess it released sort of towards the end of October, sort of very spooky game, very appropriate. And you do try to do a bit of themed streams, on Twitch. I did usually I like to do some more sort of October Halloween activities, but since I was so ill for like 3-4 weeks in October, basically the entire month, I didn't really get up to much, unfortunately, which is also why I haven't played a lot of this game, which is my sort of second thing I want to put up front. I don't really know the percentage of sort of playthrough. I think on my Steam, I think it says I've played about 5 hours, so really I have not played that much because some of it was on stream as well, and a good portion of that, probably about 40 minutes of that was spent trying to choose a clan. So... Because annoyingly, someone in chat sent me a quiz before we started the game. They were like, ooh, choose which clan you're going to do according to the quiz that you take. And I was like, cool, I'll choose that clan. Only to get into the game and discover that it only had like 6 out of like the fucking 24 clans that there are, or whatever the numbers are there. Do not have the day 1 DLC, which apparently adds an extra clan.
That's classy.
So, yeah, sue me for not doing that. But basically, this game kind of wasn't on my radar at all, despite the fact that I like vampires a lot. Those of you who know me know that I really like vampires. I love Astarion from Baldur's Gate, sort of most recently, but I'm a huge Buffy fan as well. I'm a huge vampire novel reader as well, to the point that I've kind of run out of vampire novels at this point. So if you have
This
any
is
good
one that I don't know if you heard of it.
suggestions-
It's called Dracula. Have you heard of that one?
Yes, I have.
That's pretty
actually.
old, though,
Yeah,
Alex.
it's
God,
pretty
get with
old.
the times.
It's pretty old, I'm looking more for like the literary,
Cutting edge.
the literary cutting edge, such as Twilight, etc.
Cool.
It's fine.
Cool. Classics of the genre.
Yeah, so just setting that out right at the top, that I haven't played a lot of the game. I also haven't played the original. So I'm 100, and I also didn't really look up a lot of the lore beforehand because I was like, let's just jump in. I do like to play A lot of the time when it comes to things where there are previous sort of entries and there is a lot of heavy lore, I kind of do, maybe to spite myself, like to test these things by saying how good at it is it at catching me up with lore that I'm not familiar with, because I do think that no matter how dense lore a particular property has, I do think that if you're good at writing, if you're sort of, conscious enough of who's consuming the work, you should be able to catch me up at least a moderate amount. So I do kind of like to test things like that before I go and like deep dive into lore myself. For me, it's kind of an indication of writing. So I did kind of go on into it pretty much completely blind. Yeah. I guess first sort of impressions, which is, again, I won't talk too long because I haven't played that long. And one of the reasons I won't talk for too long about it is that I haven't enjoyed it very much. I'm going to be honest. I haven't really loved it very much for reasons that I will explain. But, I do also feel like it's a bit unfair that I say it's a bad game. I don't think it's a bad game, but I haven't personally enjoyed it up until my sort of 5 hours of playthrough very much. Perhaps my perspective was a little bit colored by the fact that I know it did go through development hell. Like, famously, it underwent an extremely long and arduous and back and forth development period with many, many delays, and also like basically shifting from one publisher to another one, from Hardsuit Labs going to then be developed by the Chinese room later. Many, many delays. Writers that were originally involved on the first iteration of the project under Hardsuit Labs were then no longer involved, or their contributions entirely removed while under the control of the Chinese room. So super, super messy development period, to say the least. I don't know if you guys have any more sort of details on the development there, but just so messy, basically. I'm not actually sure how long it took in total to develop it, but...
my understanding is that it just turned into a completely different game when it changed. Changed. They pretty much started from scratch. And the word is, I have to admit, I also am not a real gamer. I have not played the original Vampire : The Masquerade : Bloodlines 1, either myself. It is a beloved immersive sim, and apparently the original version was going to be a lot more along the lines of the original. And that's, I know, a matter of some consternation for a lot of the fans, because it seemed, from what I've heard, maybe you
got like
can...
a cult following.
But from what I've heard, and maybe you know better than I do, but the new version of Bloodlines 2 is not really an immersive sim, and people are a bit upset about it.
No, not at all. I'm kind of, I guess I didn't know that the first one would have constituted as an immersive sim, because I wouldn't describe that at all, basically. No. It very much is just kind of, I've seen people describing it as a graphic novel with action sequences. And I do feel like it does kind of, obviously graphic novel, for me, I don't know, that evokes like a lot of still imagery. And it's quite an attractive game. They've designed some really interesting, attractive characters. But yeah, it is kind of, but it is also open. Well, it's open world. The world is extremely small, unless it opens up later, which it very well might do. But it's basically set in Seattle, with some highly condensed sort of Seattle landmarks, like a fairly well-known park is sort of homaged in the design of the level. But that's something I realized yesterday when I was playing through a little bit more, is that it is so small. The world that I'm playing in at the moment is so small, and I'm not sure if it does pick up, because I have so many side quests. So the game has kind of reached that stage where now I have side quests. It's kind of implied, oh, well, now the game is open to you, right? You've got plot and you've got side quests, and the world is tiny. And you basically don't really have any way of getting around other than running everywhere. And yeah, there's something about the design of the world itself that feels kind of strange to me. It's very quiet. It feels very unlived in, as far as I'm concerned. I understand for narrative reasons, like it is nighttime all the time, obviously when your character is out and about, because you are a vampire. But there's something really quite eerie about how quiet the world is. It feels unfinished. It feels a little bit unpolished. It feels a little bit unfinished as far as I'm concerned. But again, this is me having progressed very little through it. So you play as a character called Fire, who can be male or female, depending on your choice. And you kind of have like a Cyberpunk 2077 situation where you have another character living in your head. I played the sort of intro sequence on stream, and it was hilarious that we were all like, oh, this is just Cyberpunk. Like, everyone made the connection in chat where it's like, oh, this is just Keanu Reeves in your head. He's the same sort of like irreverent character sort of as well. He's a little less like burn down the city and everyone in it, you know. But he's basically like this sort of noir detective, sort of LA noir style detective called Fabian, who's sort of written to be like a bit of an unreliable narrator. I find the character insufferable. I'm going to be completely honest. I find this character that lives in your head really, really, really frustrating, mostly because of the way that he's written. He's performed very well, where the voice actor was tasked with sort of the character has these special vampire detective abilities, basically all unique abilities that specifically enable him to be like a particularly, you know, sort of mind-reading detective, right? They give him these special detective powers. One of the powers that he has is that he can essentially communicate with the memories of objects, where objects will tell him about their memories or their experiences with like people that he's concerned about, etc. And the voice actor does a really good job of doing like silly voices for each of the objects he communicates, which is quite like funny and charming. But I find really sort of jaws with the tone and the setting of the game as like a vampire in like gritty, dark Seattle in the winter, where he sort of, I don't know, it's very cartoonish. And dare I say, for me, a little bit Marvel-esque. Which is kind of the central problem that I have with the game and the tone. Like I said, I just haven't really been enjoying it. I haven't really been super motivated to keep playing it. One of the reasons is the writing, and it kind of checks out to me that it could just be me. I have heard that sort of, I think I had some chatters when I was playing the first sort of beginning opening sequences. I had some chatters say that like the first game also had a kind of like irreverent writing style. It was also a little bit goofy, a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but I also had chatters saying like it was extremely well written, that it was quite like, you know, novel-esque in the way that it was written, that it was well written. And I'm not getting that from the writing in this. I find that oftentimes it's just sillier than I would like it to be, especially the Fabian segments. Basically, whenever your character the character that you're playing as Fire, who's this sort of ancient vampire who's woken up after a very long time for mysterious reasons with a mark on her hand, which she needs, well, her in my case, she needs to find the origin of. Every time she goes back to sleep, she sort of lives a night sequence as Fabian, the detective, and you have to like solve a case. And I just really don't like these segments because I just find Fabian as a character really frustrating and annoying. Which is a shame because it's like feels like it's about 50% of the game because it's like every other night essentially, every night that you go to sleep. And yeah, I do feel like a lot of, I don't know, there are some other characters that are also written in quite a similar non-serious way. I think I've probably complained about it on previous podcasts, but stop me if I haven't. But I do have just a massive issue with writing that doesn't take itself seriously. I've always had a big issue with this ever since sort of, you know, Marvel Cinematic Universe really started popping off. I never liked the movies, and then I finally nailed down that it was like, oh, it never takes itself seriously. Just find it really annoying that all the characters are like, oh, did that just happen? Where it's like, am I supposed to get invested in the stakes? Because you guys aren't invested in the stakes. And like, I feel a bit silly as a member of the audience feeling invested if you guys aren't invested as characters, right?
Sure.
So I find the sort of very unserious, cartoonish writing style a little bit frustrating. Maybe that's just how it is. Maybe that's just sort of the Vampire the Masquerade brand of writing. It's entirely possible. And then it just sort of doesn't get on with me. But some of it does just feel quite poorly written. Just sort of really clumsy dialogue. The voice performances as well, for me, feel really up and down, where I feel like a lot of games recently, we've just been so flawed with incredible voice performances. Like voice acting, I feel like in the recent sort of gaming industry, voice acting is one of the sort of most impressive things. Like voice acting and music, I feel like, is one of the things that the gaming industry has really sort of perfected in the last few years, where it feels like very few games come out in the last 5 to 10 years that aren't like incredible on both fronts of music, voice acting, sound design, just all around. The voice acting in this game feels really weak to me in places, in a way that I haven't really felt in a really long time. Like it's been a long time since I felt this, like Oblivion, that I felt like, oh, some of this voice acting is like really just kind of jarring and weak. to me. Some characters are voiced, I think, really well, and then some characters are just voiced that are in like a very obvious caricature type way. There's a character quite early on, which is like this sort of Valley Girl accent character that like clearly she is a parody of herself, but it is also just really grating because the entire plot point that entire sequence is trying to communicate is quite serious, but the character was just so ridiculous. So I don't really know what the point was there. Maybe I'm missing it, I think is entirely possible. The main reason I played this game, like I said, was just because I love vampires, which that is something that the game does really well, I feel, actually, is sort of bringing vampire abilities into a playable format. I feel like a lot of games that have been... It's kind of baffling that there aren't that many... There are maybe no good games about being a vampire, where those vampire abilities are sort of really satisfyingly rendered, where what you kind of want is like a Spider-Man on the PS2 rendering of vampire abilities, where it's like really satisfying. It feels really immersive. You feel like you're really, you know, the vampire equivalent of saving New York City from, you know, some bad guys. I don't know. The reason I think of Spider-Man is because like it had those really impressive movement abilities, and it was just so good at making you feel like you were Spider-Man, you know?
Yeah. To be fair,
and this game, yeah.
people love the original Vampire the Masquerade
Exactly,
Bloodlines.
which it
So
probably...
maybe the original one
Exactly.
does actually
So maybe
fulfill
I
that.
will actually go and... I might actually go back to the original because it sounds like it was just a much more sort of well-executed game, potentially, than this one. That being said, like the gameplay... I think the most fun I've had with the game so far has been the battle sequences. Like, it is fun. It is satisfying. I ended up playing the Banu Hakim clan, which is like a sort of assassin class. Essentially, by choosing your clan, you choose your class, and you do get to choose that like right at the beginning. Again, like it took like 40 minutes to do that. It took me a really long time. And the abilities like are really cool. Like right in the beginning of the game, during the tutorial sequence, you're tasked with like punching a human, and he just fucking flies across the room, and it's so fun. And you're like, holy shit, I'm so powerful. And like, I don't remember the last time I felt like that in a video game, where it was like, oh, you're supposed to feel like disproportionately powerful, you know, to everything else in the world. So like the vampire abilities feel really satisfying. It feels satisfying to like have to go around the city and have to feed on people in order to restore your sort of basically ability points like that enable you to use abilities in battle. So I think that's well balanced, and it feels really cool to just sort of like, you know, just fucking rain hits down on enemies and then eat them mid-fight to recharge your energy and then do it some more. That just feels really satisfying. I think that they did that really well. And also, like, the kind of navigation around the very small map is quite satisfying as well. You have, like, a glide ability. Your vampire character can climb quite well as well. So if you get yourself onto a low enough building, you can kind of just maneuver around the city by just jumping from roof to roof and flying from roof to roof, which is really fun. That is just genuinely very satisfying. I feel like there's few games that have executed that as well as, like, again, like the Spider-Man on the PS2, which I remember very fondly as a child, and also like Mirror's Edge, you know, but obviously that was not open world. That was very much linear.
Arkham games?
Yeah, the Arkham games I remember as well. I didn't play them, but they were also famous for that sort of city, you know, like using the fact that you're in a city and like, yeah, going from rooftop to rooftop. I just love that. I love it when a game does that. And it feels like this quite sincere, serious adaptation, which is why I think the strange writing strikes me as so out of place. Yeah, I guess, like, again, I haven't gotten that far. Basically, you're sort of in a position, I think, of trying to gain favor with different clans and different operatives in the city. There definitely are some politics to be found. Immediately, you are tasked with, like, fighting your main villain in the game right at the beginning is one other clan of vampires called the Anarchs, which, as leftists, you know, some of us may even identify as anarchists ourselves. So I do think the characterization of anarchists is really very funny as a leftist who know actual anarchists, where they're all just like punks and they just fight people and they all talk like this and they just want to, I'm an anarch. I just like, I don't, you know, I hate the man and I hate everyone else. I hate everyone else who doesn't have a mohawk and a leather jacket, you know, which is just just kind of a funny representation of Anox. It's clearly trying to do like some, you're sort of like given the choice of like cozying up with Anox or cozying up with the city, the court, the official channels versus like the unofficial channels, the unofficial sources of power in the city versus the official sources of power in the city. So clearly there's going to be some like, political commentary there. Whether it's going to be interesting, I don't think so. It feels a bit like, right off the bat, it feels a bit like, oh, well, everyone's, vulnerable to being corrupted by power, which I feel like we just see in a lot of plots generally. But again, that's kind of a harsh assessment to have right in the beginning when I haven't played that much. So yeah, that's sort of my general assessment so far. I think, like I said, I am a little bit hesitant I think I would like to give it a bit more of a go because I do like vampires. I gotta give it more of a go just because I love vampires, if nothing else. But yeah, I guess it feels a bit disappointing. I haven't heard that much positive feedback about it. If there has, maybe I've just been missing it, but it feels like it was a bit of an underwhelming reception, especially because the first game was such a cult classic. So I don't know if I'm alone in my very harsh assessment. It feels like probably the atmosphere for most people is that it was fine, as opposed to like bad or unenjoyable. So I'll be interested to see if I do feel motivated to go back to it, if my opinion will change. It's possible, but yeah, it does feel a bit like I'm on a sort of a track, and I'm just sort of carting myself from one cutscene to another cutscene with some action sequences in between. It doesn't really feel like I have a lot of meaningful agency in the story, and I don't even mean like making unique choices in the like style of Mass Effect or anything. It just feels a bit like, I don't know. For a video game where you're playing a character where you're sort of, it's not a sim, it is ostensibly an RPG, feels like I'm not really playing a role that much. It feels like a bit more like I'm just on a sort of roller coaster track. So, yeah, we'll see, I suppose. Any opinions from you guys so far?
I've not really followed it too much, but it just sounds quite boring.
Yeah,
the
that's
first
the thing.
one
It's just
seems
been
intriguing
really
to
boring.
me. The first one sounds
yeah.
like there's something there that's interesting because like some people really, really like it, but I hear there's all kinds of like technical issues with it or whatever. So it sounds like the core of that game, it sounds really appealing.
Yeah.
And this just sounds generic.
Overall,
I don't know.
that is just how I would describe it, is boring. Like, I just don't feel particularly motivated to start it up. And when I do, I'm like, oh, okay, let's do this quest and then that quest. I really do just feel like I'm kind of checking boxes. Like the combat is fun, but that's kind of it. I think for a lot of us, if a game's only pros, it's combat, that's not really enough to keep you playing, especially in a game with a plot,
So many good games or good combat systems in other games.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, it just feels a bit boring, honestly, so far. But again, it could just be where I'm at this stage. Really is early on.
Well, from my understanding, the kind of general consensus seems to be that like it's nowhere near as good as the original. It's not even an immersive sim, which you'd hope it would be. But if you take it fully, it's basically not really Bloodlines 2 at all. I'm not entirely sure. I don't know if there's even any like story connection. Sure, there's something small at minimum. But it's not really a proper continuation. It's essentially what happened was they cancelled the original version of Bloodlines 2, and then a new company started a new vampire game. They just called that Bloodlines 2, probably for some contractual reason. And that's it. That's why it exists. And basically, the implication has been that Paradox, who are the publishers of it, and they do all the strategy games. This was a part of an original kind of attempt by them to kind of branch out and do like more like actiony games and other things in strategy, and it seems like it's kind of been a disaster. I think they might own the Vampire the Masquerade IP because it's originally a tabletop RPG, and they've recently made a number of Vampire the Masquerade games. They made like a battle royale game, and there was like a visual novel thing. I heard the visual novel one wasn't actually too bad, from my understanding. But so it's quite easy to imagine this is just another game they were making, and they just plastered the name on it, basically. But I've heard other people say that if you take it purely on its own merit, it's okay.
Yeah. I think that's kind of, that's the thing. I feel like probably my maximum a positive opinion would be it's been okay. I think probably it's like it does feel like there's enough sort of good and bad for me to say it's okay. I don't hate it, but yeah, I think I'm really just not super motivated to pick it up. I feel like, which it should be, right? Like I think I'm the sort of ideal, well, slightly less than ideal in that I haven't played the first game. I think that probably would have only made me much more promising sort of consumer, but I'm ideal in terms of I love vampires. I love seeing how things will iterate on vampires, and I'm just kind of not even really that drawn into the game on that basis, which has made me engage with a lot of like kind of shit media just to be like, what are you guys doing with vampires? You know, I'm not a huge like spicy smut book fan, but I've read a couple of books just to see how they would iterate on vampires, and I've been like, oh well, I really did not enjoy the writing in this, but the concept was interesting. So like I'm not
Take that, Bram Stoker.
Take that, Bram Stoker. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not. That's the thing that's just kind of shocking for me. I really wanted to like it because I love vampires, and I do think it's kind of baffling again that we don't really have a lot of good video game representation for vampires. A lot of the games that I've played that surround being a vampire just have not been very good or have been like okay, and I'm like, how difficult is this? I don't really understand. With such rich source material, with such interesting themes to explore, just kind of baffling how you land up with an average vampire experience. Vampires are really fucking cool, you know? I have all my like romantic reasons for liking vampires, but like if you strip all of that away, I think everyone can agree that vampires are really cool. So with such a good concept, it's like I don't really know how you've made something kind of boring. You know, that's just sort of disappointing. But yeah.
Well, very, very disappointing. Game industry, get your act together.
Get your act together.
Do some fucking vampire. Good
Stop
stuff.
doing my vampires dirty. What the fuck?
Exactly.
What are we doing? I feel like Astarian's been the best vampire in like the last 5 years in video games. What are we doing? Guys, come on.
What a crusading message to end your review on. Just like, a heartwarming issue we can all get behind.
More Astarian, please.
Okay, I'm all right. So that was Vampire : etc. etc. And next up, it's going to be me, and it's going to be a bit familiar because we're going to be talking about a game we talked about a few episodes ago. We're going back to the well. It's Hollow Knight Silksong. That's right. I wanted to do an update because I, dear listener, have finished that game pretty much entirely. I have 99% on the completion thing. I have every upgrade in the game. I'm as powerful as I can make Hornet as it is. So I feel like I'm pretty much completed the game. I haven't got every little collectible, every little doobry, but I can feel like I have a concise or comprehensive opinion on this game. And that opinion is, yeah, it's good. It's good. It's good. I liked it. It's a good game. It's a good game. So last time we talked quite at length about the difficulty question, big topic of discussion. And it's kind of interesting how that kind of falls away as you get through the game. It's not that it gets easier. Definitely the end is harder than the beginning, but you definitely get more used to it and it stops being so remarkable in difficulty. Even though some things happen, there's one thing that in particular that happens that is kind of bullshit. I'm going to spoil a bit about kind of the structure of the game because it is a bit of a surprise how it plays out. Though it's also a kind of thing where, as you'll see, it's just kind of disappointing until you most likely look it up on the internet and then you're like, oh, that's what happens. I think most people are probably not going to stumble into how to properly get through this game. But essentially, I think certainly I had the last time we talked about it, we got to Act 2 at the beginning of the game. The big screen comes up and says Act 1. Then when you get into this place called the Citadel, which is like your first main objective that you're given from the beginning of the game is to get into this place called the Citadel. When you get there, it comes up and it says Act 2. And if you're going to turn this into acts, it feels like there has to be an Act 3, right? Like, there's no point in doing that if it's only going to be Act 2. But when you've beat the final boss at the end of Act 2, the game ends. Credits run. That's it. And it's frankly quite anticlimactic. The final boss is quite a good boss, but like the things that happen in it, it feels like, I think the response that most people have is, "Oh, is that it? Really? Is that it?" And I think then most people will go to the internet and they'll find out that no, that isn't it. There is more to the game. Essentially, there is a quest you have to do, and that quest only appears when you've just done a somewhat arbitrary number of the other quests in the game. It's not all of them, because at least I know it's not all of them, because I had one quest I hadn't done at that point. But at least most of them, I think people, even the experts, still aren't entirely clear of exactly what you have to do to make this new quest appear. And it's quite involved. And this basically gives you another option you can do during the final boss. And then essentially what happens is you defeat the final boss, but then a thing happens and you go instead into Act 3. And in Act 3, essentially, there's like a cataclysmic event occurs. And now the entire world that you've been playing in is transformed somewhat. I mean, it's basically the same, but now everything's like crumbling. It's kind of a post-apocalyptic version of the game you've been playing. Not quite apocalyptic, and inevitably, maybe for Silksong, it also gets a lot harder. All the enemies you've now faced, every time they turn up, they almost every one of them will turn into this new type of enemy that takes maybe twice as many hits to kill and are much more dangerous. And to be honest, that kind of put me off quite early on. I was like, seriously? Now just moving around in the game, just going from place to place, now that's way more difficult than before. But you do kind of get used to it. You finally hoover up the last upgrades and things. And I don't know, it is a very good and very compelling game by the end of it, I would say. I mean, I thought it was good before. The difficulty and the kind of meanness that I described the last time, I feel that kind of falls away as you get more powerful in the game. I guess maybe it's something of a reverse energy curve, a difficulty curve, even if it is still, very difficult. The final boss, the real final boss, is very difficult. I died a bunch of times. It's hard. But yeah, so that was kind of my opinion of it. The world itself, when you kind of take it into its totality, is actually really interesting, kind of beautiful in many places and kind of evocative. I will say there is a huge amount hidden in this game. When I beat the final boss and I'd seen the end credits, I had on my counter, as I mentioned, 99%. I'd got, as I said, all the upgrades. And then, as inevitably I do in this and in games like, the FromSoft games, the Elden Rings, etc., I think, I have no idea what any of that was about. So I go to the lore videos, I go to Silksong Explained, Ending Explained, or whatever, or these like hour-long videos that explain what the fucking story was. And quite quickly, I'm seeing areas and entire bosses of this game that I'm like, what the fuck is that? How I got 99%. How have I not seen this area? But there were like a number of areas and actually lore important areas and bosses that I didn't even realize were in the game.
That's kind of the worst feeling. I feel like I've had that once or twice in a game where people are like, "Oh, and when you go to this area, it's clearly this," and it's like, what are you talking about? What do you mean? Oh, is that why I don't understand the fucking video game that I just played? Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's what you're in for. The only real way to piece together the story in these games. And I really like this element, though at the same time, I do feel the frustration of just knowing basically the only way to understand what's happening in these games is to carefully piece together all the little disparate bits of information you can get from oh, this guy says this abstract thing here. And when you consider that this other character on the other side of the world says this means that, and so on, oh, this item description says that. And you slowly put it together. I conceptually really like that, but I do feel a sense of disappointment that I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to get a notebook out and jot down every single item description and break out the conspiracy theory red string to put them all together to form a wider idea of what the fundamental basic story of the game is. What happens is I play the games, I'm like, that seems interesting. I'm kind of getting some idea what's happening, and then I just watch a YouTube video and I just understand what the game actually is about. So yeah, I get the feeling, I really respect it as a kind of story structure, but I can't deny I feel a loss in the fact that
Mm.
it requires an absurd amount of effort just to find out, not even like the deeper themes of the game or anything, but just like fundamentally what was going on. And I'm just never going to put that level of effort, realistically. So yeah, but I mean, again, as I said, I can't really lay that at Silksong's feet. It's a pretty common feature of a bunch of games now, of which Silksong is merely one of them. So it's just the style of the times, you know? But speaking of the story, there is actual politics in this. I couldn't really speak to the politics previously because, again, I had no idea what was going on. But now I do, having watched some YouTube videos, and there are actually some interesting politics in this game. So without getting too spoilery, and there probably will be some spoilers here, basically, this is a world where, so in the original Hollow Knight, it's about this bug society. And a large part of it is the fact that these bugs were granted sentience by this other bug called the Pale King that kind of used some magical force to basically make these bugs intelligent. And he did that for the purposes of basically creating religious followers. He wanted them to worship him. And he suggested that pale beings, of which there are a number, inherently want worship. So in this game, a different pale being turned up to the world of Farloom, which is the land you're in, and did that as well, and was also looking for worship. And he specifically did this with these bugs called the Weavers, who turned up in the first game as well, and which Hornet, the character you play, is part Weaver. She's half Weaver. And so basically these Weavers were enraptured by this person, but then they rebelled. And the way they rebelled against this grandmother Silk is the name of the pale being, is that they basically built this entire city to sing her to sleep into a slumber. And so the entire city, the citadel that you explore, is basically a colossal machine for maintaining a song perpetually of like thousands of bugs all the time to keep this thing asleep. But at some point, the Weavers all left. And so now it's just this giant machine that exists to create this song. A silk song, some might say.
Title card.
But what's interesting politically about it is that essentially it's turned into a capitalist nightmare in doing that. So the entire city you get to, the citadel, is like gilded. It's like it's covered in gold and stuff. And all the bugs that live there have like a lot of money on them. If you kill them, you get a lot of money. Whereas all the way up to the game until you get to the city, you've been going on this path of that pilgrims go on. And you encounter these pilgrims, most of whom have gone crazy and attack you. And when you kill them, they don't have much money. So essentially, it's the bugs in the citadel are like sucking up these pilgrims. And when you first get into the citadel, I don't know if you remember me mentioning that there was that very difficult boss, the last judge. And then as soon as you beat that boss, you go and finally get into the citadel, and you're immediately sent down to the Undercity, which is like really dirty and horrible, and you can't get in there. And that actually happens because that's what they're doing to the pilgrims. They think they're going up to the Holy City, but they're immediately thrown into the Undercity, which is like basically like absolute capitalist exploitation. So like in the rest of the game, there are these benches that you sit on. It's your checkpoints that you get your health back. But in that area, you have to pay money to use them. And the bugs you kill there have like almost no money. So there is there's this one kind of secret NPC that you can have to like search around to find that's like on a perpetual treadmill and only knows about the treadmill and like thinks that he's going to get elevated up to the holy city, even though the holy city is basically dead because of the various other things that are happening in the game. But he's just been on this treadmill his whole life. And next to him, there's another little treadmill that you can go on and you can just run on to like give this creature a rest. But while you're running on, a little meter incredibly slowly rises. And if you're on the if you literally run on it at full pelt for like 3 minutes in a row, eventually the meter fills to full and it throws you one tiny bead, which are the the currency in the game. Eventually you get it. So it's not a terribly subtle implication there. Furthermore, it turns out that so part of this, the silk element of this is that the silk is basically magical and comes from grandmother silk, as you might imagine. And they discover that if you just like inject people with silk, they can live forever. So this turns them into eternal workers. But eventually people will wear out anyway. And there are all these, throughout the whole game, there are these little floating, they kind of look like butterflies or something, these glowing butterfly things. In fact, you see them a lot in like these like glass bulbs as light sources. And you discover, and you really have to go kind of like find a secret area and just like put it together through the lore, that essentially they've worked out a way to extract the souls from the infirm and basically put them to work forever. In some cases, they get put in robots, and in other cases, they are literally just light bulbs. And this is like their eternal servitude to the holy city. There are also other areas in the world that you explore are in fact like destroyed other kingdoms that have been completely subsumed by the capitalism in the area. One area called Bile Water is like horrifically polluted. That's because that's where the pollution from the city went to. So it is actually quite coherent world that's been created in a really interesting way. And it does have a pretty obvious theme of capitalist exploitation. And also, I mean, we alluded to this the first time we talked about the, Marxist idea of religion being the opiate of the masses, that really this religion is being used. Even if like the kind of the ultimate point of religion, keeping this being asleep, is at least somewhat noble, it's just turned into a colossal engine of exploitation to achieve that through the means of religious fervor. So yeah, it's quite interesting and it's certainly quite evocative in places, and these games have a huge amount of melancholy. This and the first one. So yeah, it is just a really quite beautiful little game. I think it's better than Hollow Knight. As we discussed, I wasn't the biggest fan of Hollow Knight, so maybe I'm just wrong. But there seems to be that the consensus is that this is better. So I'm not alone in thinking that. I do think that the character movement is better, and the first one I had a great version of that as it was, but this is like really feels acrobatic. We talked about this last time, but really feels acrobatic as you're fighting these bosses and so on. And yeah, some of the bosses later on are really great fun. In fact, pretty much all the bosses are at least like imaginative, and none of them feel unfair, except like when that fucking last judge explodes at the end. That was I'll say that. But all of them, I mean, I've now beaten them all, and I'm not history's greatest gamer. So it's a tough game, but I do think, certainly I think it's just a really rough entry, to be honest. When you get into it, it's just so difficult so early on. But as you do get used to it, and as you get more powerful in the game, you get more abilities and so on, it does even out a lot more. So I do think, like, I know part of me does like the fact that it's so difficult early on. I can't deny it. There is like just like a throwing yourself into it, and it does feel like when you gain mastery of the game over it all, it feels a little bit like something's lost, part of the mystique of it. But I don't know. Overall, yeah, I'm certainly a fan of Silksong in a way I wasn't as really a fan of Hollow Knight. I don't know if I'd say it's like my game of the year. Some people saying it's like an absolute masterpiece. It's incredible. I don't know if I'd go that far, but I do think it's a very good game, and I enjoyed it a lot. And has some pretty good politics in it. So that's all good for us.
I've also been continuing with Silksong since episode 16, where we all talked about it. And
I have not.
I think my take's that doesn't surprise me based on what you said in episode 16. I think my take's basically similar to yours there, Alex, apart from the politics. I haven't got far enough to start Googling the politics or the law or whatever. So I'm at the end of Act 2. I haven't finished Act 2, but I could probably finish it in a couple of hours, depending on how hard the final boss is going to turn out to be. I don't know. But I basically agree. I think the point where I spoke in episode 16 of this podcast was kind of at my low point of enjoying this game, which is I had either just beaten or was still stuck at a boss that was really pissing me off, and I was finding it really unfair and quite annoying. And really, since then, it's just been up and up for me. Like, I've just enjoyed it more and more and more. I felt like, with very few exceptions, the bosses have sort of rhythms to them and patterns to them that have this great mix of seeming like an insurmountable obstacle the first couple of times, and then quite swiftly you learn what the rhythm is, and suddenly what initially seems like almost entirely not understandable suddenly becomes quite logical and like a puzzle that you're solving in the same way, appealing in the same way that Dark Souls can be appealing with their bosses, like obviously the most, boring comparison in history, but it's got the same sort of thing where you learn their rhythms and suddenly, oh, you can smell blood in the water, like, oh, oh, I am going to beat this boss, like maybe not now, but I will beat it in the next 20 minutes or what, like I'm going to beat this soon because I've got this rhythm down. And you can just so swiftly go from not even getting a third of the damage on it to suddenly like, oh, I understand it now. Like you have this really satisfying moment of it clicking where suddenly like you get it. And I get that with like move by move sometimes with bosses too. Like they've got maybe like 4 or 5 different moves, and relatively early on I'll like get what I need to do in response to a couple of them, and then I'm like trying out other things with regards to the other moves, and like it's like piece by piece by piece it comes together, and then suddenly boom, I can get this guy. And yeah, I really do rate this game. Is it better than Hollow Knight? Maybe. It's quite similar to Hollow Knight though, is my experience. Alex, you seem to like Silksong significantly more. I would say they're pretty similar games. Maybe Silksong is better in that it's got Hollow Knight to build off of. Like it kind of does build out off of Hollow Knight to some extent. If it's better, it would be in the way that Super Mario Galaxy 2 is better than Super Mario Galaxy. Like it's quite, they're of a piece. So I would
I mean,
find it very
they're not
difficult to put anything
wildly
between
different
them.
games, obviously. But I do think that Silksong, I think the areas are more interesting. I think like it just does more. Like there's one bit in the game, like it's obviously kind of lifted somewhat from Bloodborne, where this basically the same thing happens, but an enemy, instead of killing you, captures you and then takes you to a prison, and you got to break out the prison, and that's like a whole different area,
The
and like a
slab.
different kind, the slab, and it's like a complete. You don't have any of your gear, so it's like a different kind of challenge. And like nothing really that interesting, nothing like that shakes things up like that happens in Hollow Knight. I mean, I think they probably had more time, a bit more budget, and so on. I mean, I don't know how much budget matters when it's literally just 3 guys making the game. So, but like certainly they're more confident about those things. I think.
I agree with that.
And I think like the whole thing about the original game Hollow Knight is that the character you play is, I mean, literally empty. Like it literally comes into the story that he's a complete cipher and has no personality or anything. Right? It's like he's just like an empty shell, basically. Some might say he is a Hollow Knight. That actually does make sense because a Hollow Knight is a different character in the game officially. But I'm saying, thematically, he is also a Hollow Knight, right? Yeah. And whereas Cornet is actually a character. She talks in the game. She has opinions and stuff. There's actually like, because she's like from the first game, she's like a princess basically. She's like the daughter of the king and queen. Oh no, it's the queen, but like the king. And she's like literally, she's also half a pale being, one of these like godlike creatures. So there's like a whole thing. I mean, again, there's spoilers, but basically the first kind of anticlimactic ending is her essentially replacing the grandmother Silk, and it's a bad ending. She like everything actually gets worse when you win, because she just becomes as immediately as bad as the previous situation. But the whole thing about, if you do enough of the quests, this other quest opens up and allows you to do a different ending. That's the implication, is that like, because you helped a bunch of people, she's become a better person and therefore doesn't want like to conquest. She wants to actually help the people of the land, so you get a different ending. That's essentially the concept, which is like, I mean, I don't know. There's plenty of like posh people on the left who are good because they're using their privilege to actually help things, right? And so we
like angles.
Pardon?
Like angles.
You like angles. So I thought you were going to like start naming and shaming people we know on the left who are too posh. We give them shit. There's no denying we're obviously going to give them shit. But overall, it's good that they did that. And I know that I think there's a little bit of that reflecting. I wouldn't really call that much of an explicitly political edge to the game. But yeah, whereas again, literally the point of the first game is that the knight is literally no one, and that actually has like thematic and plot relevance to the game.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think the core skeleton of the game is very consistent with Hollow Knight, and then they've done some more building on top of that versus Hollow Knight. So
Yeah.
I probably have more respect for Hollow Knight, but Silksong's probably a better game. Maybe that's the situation.
Yeah. Well, I think that might be it for Silksong. Looks that way. Pretty again, we're getting through these.
I wish I had more to add. I just, you know how I got onto Silksong.
You didn't go back to it. You didn't go back to it.
agree.
You haven't finished it. You're not doing speed runs of it. You're not on the top 10 board.
Maybe I will start doing speedruns of Silksong. Just you wait, dear listener.
Any day now. Any day now. Well, no, we can move on. It's good. It's good to get through in a clip, because we do have one more game to talk about, and I think that's coming from Ed. What game is that, Ed?
Alex, it's Stray, which is a game that I know that all of us have played. The cat game, yeah.
Cat game.
Yeah, if you know anything about this game, you'll know that. That is a cat.
Meow.
That's right. Meow. Kittens. Anyway, yeah, so yeah, it's a 2022 adventure game, which is the first and so far only game from Blue 12 Studios. In the game, you play as a cat. That's it. No, and you get trapped inside a walled city. And you're... That's basically it. I mean, I think
a lot of it.
I will have less to say about this than normal, because I think the core of it is that you're a cat and that you're in a city. That's kind of the situation.
You're forgetting one really important factor, which is that you
There's
are
a little robot.
Really cute.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that is genuinely a big part of this game, right? That is like,
yeah, no, for sure. I will talk about that.
The best looking cat, like animated cat
very
ever in a
well,
video game by quite a long way.
We'll probably get into.
So yeah. You're trying to escape from this city, and along your way you're helped by various robots, more or less, and as you navigate your way out. That's the story. That's basically all I'm going to say about the story as well. Like, I don't think there's too much that I'm going to dive into. So as I say, the game's developed by Blue 12 Studio. They were founded by two developers, Kula and Viv, who left Ubisoft Montpellier together to work on it. And the game kind of had a dream announcement and launch cycle for an indie developer. It's what anyone would wish for. There was just instantly a huge amount of buzz when it was announced, which was in June 2020. As far as I can tell, basically because of the cat. And again, we're joking about the cat, but the cat really did make this game like hugely popular straight away. But in the year it came out, it was one of the most wish-listed games on Steam. And I believe it was Steam's highest user-rated game of 2022. Like, there was a huge amount of buzz about it. And, who could have predicted that cat content would go viral on the internet? I mean, I, for one, could never have seen it coming. It's incredible.
Seems unlikely.
But it does. Yeah, but to get into the actual game part of the game play, I would say it's pretty simple. As I've already alluded to, the story is also kind of simple. The joy of the game is really that you're a cat. You're playing a tabby cat that doesn't have a name, although it is modelled after a real-life stray cat that one of the developers adopted, Mortog, aka the boss, I believe. And also the animations, which, as we've just also, I think, did we just mention this? The animations in this game are pretty incredible, to be fair. It's the most cat-accurate stuff that I've ever seen.
Genuinely incredible.
In a video game.
I do remember when it came out, there was a little kind of a sub-genre of videos on the internet of people playing it on like a big screen in their living room while a real cat looks at it and it's like pawing at it and stuff like that.
When
think it's a real cat.
It was, and that was like trending for sure for a long time.
Yeah, like I feel like what Red Dead did for horses, Stray did for cats in terms of like how incredibly it is animated.
Does the cat's testicles get smaller in colder areas of the game?
Okay, maybe not that.
That's funny you should say that, because I'm actually playing Red Dead 2 as one of my other games that I'm playing at the moment.
Recently replaying Red Dead 2, actually, yeah. Maybe we should all do an episode about that.
We could do, yeah.
Maybe that could be a group episode.
It came out recently. This is like, we're talking about Rockstar in the news, and it came out recently that Red Dead 2 is like the fourth best-selling game of all time.
Yeah, I kind of believe it.
makes sense.
It is really good.
Yeah.
It's incredibly, everyone's like GTA that sold incredibly, and obviously it has, but like,
Yeah.
but if that didn't exist, Rockstar, but Red Dead Redemption 2 would be like, people would be talking that, but everyone
Red
Anyway,
Dead 2
anyway,
is so
it
good.
gets
Anyway,
forgotten
cat.
because
Focus
it's not
up.
GTA.
Stray.
Anyway,
Focus up. Let's go.
You're thinking about the
Stray.
wrong
Stray.
animal-based
Yes.
game.
You are the cat.
The cat. Yeah, and I wanted to a crucial moment here where I shout out Oscar, who is the cat that the animations were modeled on. So I want to shout out to that as well for the lead animator, Maiko.
Very cute.
I hope these cats
Great work.
unionized.
Yeah, they better be. Yeah, I mean, a big part of the enjoyment of the game is it's fun to move about as a cat. You are sort of looking for things to jump onto, looking for things to jump off of, looking for things to interact with, like sofas to scratch, or walls to scratch, or carpets which you can scratch. There's a lot of scratching and there's a lot of stretching going on in the game, and none of it is required, really. I mean, but you do it. Anytime it comes up, I'm like, oh, yeah, I'd like to see my cat do that. That sounds nice. Also, another thing that I haven't mentioned that you get to interact with is sometimes there's buckets of paint and you can knock them off.
Yes.
And that's a little mischievous little moment of fun. Anyway, back to the gameplay, the jumps, as you sort of navigating around the city, you're sort of jumping around the place quite a lot in a sort of cat-like way, feline, if you will. The jumps are auto jumps, so it sort of comes up as like a place you can select to jump to. So this is not like a platformer. Like jumping is not part of the difficulty of the game. In fact, the game is not very challenging. That's not what the game's about. The game is just sort of an experience that you're having. Like it's not Silksong, which is a game that we've talked about before on this podcast just now. And as a cat simulator, it's pretty fun. And as far as I can tell, it's second to none. Very well animated. Although I will say, big plot hole is that the cat is way more agreeable than almost any other cat I know. So
Yes.
that doesn't make any sense to me. And aside from navigating through the space as a cat, you'll also be solving puzzles sometimes. There are specific chase sections where you run away from little... I've called them like robot insecty style creatures. I think in the actual lore of the game, they're like massive bacteria. But that's how, certainly how I perceived them when I was playing it. They're called Zerks. And you also do a lot of helping out of the robot bipeds that you meet. The cat also soon finds a little AI companion called B12, Blue 12 Studios, B12. I see what they've done there.
Oh, wow.
That's it's like a little... You keep the AI in like a small drone that sits on the sort of cat's back. It's got like a strap system that the drone nestles in. So you've got a little companion to explore with you around the city. And B12 helps with computers and communication and unlocking doors. So I just want to throw an issue out there right off the bat, right off the cat, which is that this game made me feel really quite motion sick. And that's very bizarre for me. I've not really ever had that with a flat screen game before, like tiny little bits every now and again, but never anything like this. And I've read online, and I'm certainly not the only one. A lot of other people seem to have had this experience too. And the fix generally agreed upon is turn off the motion blur. So I guess that's a little PSA right up top here. Like if you do play this game, which I'm going to sort of recommend that you do if it sounds appealing, and you end up feeling sick, turn the motion blur off. But it was very bizarre.
I think I did as well. I think I also ended up turning the motion blur off. I turn the motion blur off on most games, to be fair, though. I do have motion sickness with games quite often, but I think I do remember that for Stray. Interesting that you don't usually get it. You got it for this. That's interesting.
Not really at all.
I don't remember getting motion blur at all with these games.
So the gameplay, as I say, is pretty straightforward, but it's the abandoned city that I would say is, other than the cat, is really the star of the game. How the game kind of works is it funnels you through a sort of a relatively tightly confined section, and then it'll get to a sort of hub section where you'll be for an hour or so. For context, this game's like 5 hours long, so an hour is quite a long time in the game. And the central hub is normally like a couple of city blocks sort of vibe. Like it's not that big. Like it's a small indie game, but it is much more open and ripe for sort of exploration than the corridors that sort of get you there. Not literal corridors, but gameplay corridors. And these hubs are not very large, but they do feel very detailed, and they have a certain charm to them for sure. You feel like you're part of a vast underground city, even though the actual size of the place that you can navigate is not that large. It really does feel like you're in the area that the game is telling you that you're in. And I think having really small but detailed locations is the perfect way to go for things like this. There's certainly we've seen this tendency with lots of other games before to just put in extra shit to like be able to say that the game's bigger or whatever, or to make it seem like the game's bigger. I think this is a much better approach. Like really refine it, make the game big enough to accommodate the stuff in your game, and then don't make the game bigger. And I feel like they've done a very good job of that. The city was inspired by, I might pronounce this wrong, so please correct me, Kowloon?
Kowloon.
Walled
Yeah, it is
City?
Kowloon.
Yeah,
Kowloon Walled
I've
City,
been there.
which is an area in Hong Kong. Ah, lovely.
Hmm.
I assume you
which,
didn't go to the walled city because it was demolished in like the 80s.
No, I did not go to
There's
the
a-
Walled
there is a
City, but I
park
did go
there
to
now.
Kowloon. I went to Hong Kong before the big Hong Kong
was cool.
protests, so it was quite a different Hong Kong
Oh, yeah.
that
That's
I
what they were
visited.
protesting about.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Kowloon Walled City in the 1980s had a population density of 3 million people per square mile, which makes it by a considerable margin the most dense city ever. For comparison's sake, the most densely populated city today is Giza in Egypt, which has got 120,000 per square mile, and this had 3 million. So this is the population density that Manhattan would have if everyone from Texas moved to Manhattan. Like, it was absolutely packed. And it was, for the 20th century, it was largely controlled by gangs. It was home to the narcotics trade, to the trade in dog meat, prostitution. And as Alex has said, it was demolished in 1994 in a joint effort with China and Britain. And I think this city directly was like a big inspiration for them in making this game in the first place. Sort of the developers reading about this city, I think going to visit the wall gardens, all that kind of stuff. I think that was like basically what I'm saying is part of the key point of the game was to recreate a city that felt like it was meant to be that densely populated and like packed full of stuff. And it basically really makes sense that was the inspiration. It works really well as an inspiration for an abandoned underground city. And I think talking about how packed it is speaks to the vibe that you get when exploring this city, which is sort of the opposite. You feel like you're in a place which is meant to be super busy, and yet it's like very largely empty. And the game, you basically really get the vibe that some shit went down, but you're not quite sure what it was. And it feels like it probably went down quite a long time ago. The game's not super explicit about what happened, but you can work it out. And so I certainly didn't do that all by myself. I've done some Alex style looking up of what the law's meant to be. That's when I realized that the Zerks weren't bugs. But you don't need to do that to get the vibe, which is you're in a sort of, it's not exactly a ruined city in the way that cities are ruined in Fallout or like The Last of Us. Like the buildings are still basically intact, and even the subways kind of still run. But you have the strong feeling of like emptiness. And there's also a clear cyberpunk aesthetic here as well, with the use of neon lighting and the advanced technology of these robots who are the current inhabitants of the city. So it feels to me like it's like we've had the present, and then we got to a cyberpunk future, and then this game takes place in like a post-cyberpunk future, like post some kind of collapse. That's what it feels like. The design of the city is smart in that it's very vertical. It really takes advantage of the cat's moveset, or probably the other way around. The city's been designed, maybe the cat's been designed to take advantage of the city. I think that is the approach that actually happened, because as I say, I believe the city was came first in development, but I'm not certain of that. But it's very vertical. There's lots of air conditioning units and pipes or window ledges for you to jump up to get to the rooftops, or you can climb back down and scuttle through the alleyways, and it feels very natural. It feels like these platforms would belong in the environment, and you don't have to suspend your disbelief at all. It's not like when you get some video games where you get to an area and there's a bunch of boxes on the ground and you're like, oh, a fight's about to, a shoot 'em out was about to happen. There's not really any of that in that game. It all feels very organic and like natural and real. Not natural as in planty, but natural as in realistic almost. The exception for that being, in my opinion, the incredibly charming but not super plausible bucket system, where the cat gets in a bucket and zip lines to another building. And I would defend that by saying it's very cute, and they were completely correct to keep that in the game.
Yes, absolutely. It is entirely justified.
Fantastic work. Entirely justified.
I think we have podcast consensus on the bucket.
Podcast consent. So yeah, I mean, really the core of the game is you're exploring this very characterful city with your fun cat moves. It's very cute, and you're slowly uncovering some of the story and traveling to new sections. That's basically the game. Like I've just described everything that you're going to do in this game, and it's for a 5-hour indie game. That's all you need. Like there's nothing else that you need in the game. It's more than enough to give you 5 hours of great gameplay. I'll talk about the politics as I see them a little bit. Like it's not a very explicitly or loudly political game as far as I can see, but there are two strands that occur to me when I was thinking about what I was going to say on this podcast. The first one is the obvious post-apocalypse element to it all. Like it's not stated very clearly what happened, but you can, well, actually, I'll tell you what happened. What happened was the dev team were considering putting humans in the game, and then there were only 5 of them, and they decided that it was much too hard to make and animate enough humans to populate the game without getting caught in the uncanny valley. So they moved on from that. But within the story of the game, you can sort of piece little bits and pieces together here, little clues that you can find by going on reddit.com. No, but you can find through the game through exploring and reading and all that kind of stuff, sort of Metroidvania style storytelling or even Silksong style storytelling. But the gist of it is this. There was some kind of climate catastrophe forcing humanity to escape under the ground. They forced together in these cramped and unsanitary conditions. A plague broke out, which seems to have wiped out humanity. Your little AI guy, B12, is a human consciousness uploaded to the computer, and there is some suggestion that some or all of the other robot consciousnesses, not certain on that you meet, might also originally have been humans whose minds have been uploaded to the cloud. I don't know, to a computer. And yeah, that's basically the backdrop. So if that is the backdrop, it's not making a big deal out of it. But I think in this day and age, it's hard to set a game in a post-climate crisis world and not think that is somewhat of a political statement. But
sure,
obviously it's a subtle one because it's not really emphasizing that that's what's happened. It's not about the climate crisis, but given it's a story in which the climate crisis appears to have indirectly decimated humanity, well, there's a clear political stance to setting the story there. My other sort of, again, another sort of relatively soft political reading. I'm even less confident on this one, but I'll put that out there and you guys see if you think it's a reach. I think the game's designed to make you be more sort of open-minded and accepting. The game creates this very alien experience for you. First, obviously, you're controlling a cat rather than a human, but more importantly, it populates the city with robots other than living beings, so like a different kind of consciousness, a different kind of being from what you're used to. And third, it creates a new alphabet and a new numbering system and a new language that you need B12 to translate for you. So there's a deliberate attempt to make you feel like you're in a strange body with different life forms in a city you've never been in before, with everything in a language that you don't speak. And I think there's a deliberate attempt to make you feel like somewhat alienated from your context, especially like at the start of the game. Like right at the start of the game, you're with a whole group of cats and you get separated from them. Like right at the start of the game, there's a very direct removal of you from like a place where you are safe. However, ultimately, things more or less end up being pretty welcoming to you, I would say, in the game. Your form is fun and easy to control being a cat. The city's actually very well suited to your traversal. The vast majority of the living-ish beings that you meet end up being really friendly and kind and helping you out on your journey. And because of their help, you manage to escape the city. And, you very shortly after starting the game meet a new friend, B12, who helps you with the translations, etc. So the developers have created a scenario which seems very alienating, people who are different from you, and then it's shown them to ultimately be very welcoming, helpful, and basically good people. So to me, there's a soft message there about how in the real world, especially in the kind of times we're living in now, this shouldn't have felt like a political statement, but in 2022 and to this day, unfortunately, it is a bit of a political statement to say maybe things that are different from you, that speak a different language, that are from a place that you've never been to before, maybe they're actually all right. Like maybe you don't need to be freaked out by how different people are. And again, I hate that basically confirming that the climate crisis would be bad if it happened or continued to happen, and also that people who are different from you are nice. Actually, neither of those things should be hot politics takes. But I do think in 2022 those do stand out as somewhat very soft political takes. That's basically all I've got to say. Very conscious that both of you have played this game, so you probably want to. Well, I'd like to hear certainly what you've each got to say on the game. Who wants to go first? Sophie, perhaps?
Yeah, I loved this game. I do remember really loving it. I just love the sort of, again, I I do love games that sort of do movement in a fun way. I think who doesn't, right? We all love games like that because it's so fun. Moving is something that you don't have the form of. And I do also love games that don't have you play as a human being. That's always really fun as well. I feel like that's just really fun at the end of the day. Yeah, I kind of, as I agree with you, I think both of those, the sort of themes that you identified very much are the case. Obviously, the climate one, as you mentioned, is really obvious. As you say, it is kind of a bit of a sad, obvious theme to have of just like, hey, people who are different from you, maybe they're actually not that different after all. But I do kind of like games that, I'm speaking again about a little bit about Japan here, but like, that, obviously I lived in Japan for 2 years. When I went there,
Oh,
I
did you
didn't
live in
speak any
Japan? Oh,
Japanese.
wow,
I
that's
did
really
actually live
cool.
in
Wow.
Japan for I actually lived in Hokkaido for 2
Oh,
years.
yeah. Wow.
But when I
game
first,
Isn't
set
that
there.
where
I promise I'm bringing this up for a reason, I promise. But that is actually where Ghost of Yotei is set.
Wow.
No, so when I first went there, I didn't speak that much. I spoke like a little bit, but obviously it's extremely difficult to be in a country where the writing system is different. And I not only was in a foreign country, but I was also in a part of the country where there wasn't a lot of English support. I kind of had to learn Japanese because very few people around me spoke English. You're just not really going to get by unless you start learning a little bit of Japanese. But like when you're first landing there, I remember I've met a lot of people who refuse to travel to foreign countries where they don't speak the language. They're just terrified to do it, or travel to places where they're afraid that they won't find people who don't speak the language. And kind of having that experience in Japan kind of taught me that I can kind of go anywhere and not speak the language because you can communicate with human beings in lots of interesting ways. Like even just like gesticulating, pointing at things, smiling, laughing. And it turns out that we're all very much on the same page of just being people, right? And it turns out it's not actually that difficult to communicate. It's something like Stray and also the game, I always forget, Chance of Sonar, which is kind of like a Tower of Babel type story as well, where you're dropped into a world where you speak none of the languages and you just kind of have to figure out what people are saying. And I love that as a theme in video games because I think like so few people actually have that opportunity to be dropped into a situation where they do not speak a language and they just have to find other ways to communicate. And I think it's really charming when video games try to sort of bring that feeling up for players because I think it's something that a lot of people will may never actually get to experience. So I think it's kind of I think it's actually quite sweet and novel to try and emulate that experience in video games. And I like it. And like, even if it is just the thing of like, yeah, it's not actually that bad traveling to a country you don't speak the language of because there's all sorts of ways that we communicate. We're very adaptable creatures, there's all sorts of ways that you communicate. And I feel like Stray and like Chances and all kind of amplify that of like, yeah, you'll manage, you'll be fine. Like we're all people at the end of the day. People do kind of want to help you in the end. Most people would like for you to not, end up, in a ditch in a foreign country. Most people are pretty invested in that not being the case for you. And it's just kind of presenting the world as a friendly place. It is sad that that still is a theme that people try to evoke, but I do also kind of like that trying to make it as immersive as it ends up being. I don't know if that makes sense, but I did kind of really find that quite charming about the game.
Yeah, it was a really great part of it. I really like that about it as well. I do have a political take on this game, but I have to admit, I only like half remember. It's been a while since I played it, so it's possible I'm imagining part of this. But I seem to remember that essentially all the robots in the world are kind of the whole thing is that they've kind of recreated the patterns of human society and also like capitalism. They recreated capitalism, and there's not really any reason for them. These are robots; they don't need to like eat or anything. So I felt like there was kind of a statement, a kind of about like kind of capitalist realism thing where they just were on it because of the humans that existed there, and then they died, and then these robots just kept going in their image, and they were unable to kind of imagine a new way of running things, even though the fact that they're robots means that the reasons for even capitalism to exist don't even really exist anymore for them. I felt like that was kind of an interesting take on it, although it's possible I'm genuinely thinking of a completely different game. But I do think it was this one. And I felt that was quite interesting. I mean, it's to justify, there's quite a lot of like, you meet these robots and they're obviously like kind of aping human society that existed. I think it's meant to be like hundreds of years ago at this point in the game. And like that's part of like the melancholy of it. But also I felt like there was something of a political statement being made about it.
Yeah. I feel like I think I seem to remember liking that as well. Of just like I remember finding it quite cute that a lot of the robots were like, oh well, this is the sort of thing humans did, right? We don't know. I don't know any humans myself, but I heard that they did this. So yeah, I suppose you could sort of extend that to a degree of like, yeah, they're kind of just doing capitalism because that's what the people did before. You know, that's kind of just what people did. They don't even really have a reason to do it. And for them, it comes across as like a little bit charming. Yeah, I think there's in like post-apocalyptic fiction, I find it really irritating when, you know, groups of people supposedly will immediately return to capitalism because they're like, this is the only way that society can be. So I'm going to hoard resources and, you know, violently harass or, you know, extort anyone who wants these resources as well. And I like that it kind of has a bit of an interesting take on that. We're like, we're still going to do capitalism, but we don't really know why. We're just kind of doing it because I guess the guys before us did it, and there's like the infrastructure for it, but we don't really know what money is. We don't really know what money does. We don't really know what a till does, why they were cash registers in a shop. We don't really get that, you know. It's kind of like children emulating what parents do, you know. They don't really get it, but they're just like, oh, well, monkey see, monkey do. I'm just going to do that, I guess. It's just kind of cute.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of our stray opinion. If that sounds appealing to you, I believe it's currently the PlayStation Network's like free game of the month, or the game that you get if you're subscribed, or you know.
I did actually.
If you like cats, you can't go wrong. If you like cats, absolutely. But I think you've probably already played it if you like cats and also play video games.
I tell you what, it makes Nintendo dogs plus cats on the 3DS look like shit. So yeah, take that, Nintendo.
Did kind of make me want to get a cat, I'll be honest.
Well, we're done with that. And now we will stray from talking about the games. I mean, just, you know.
Very good.
Just withhold your incredible astonishment at my prose there. And we'll get on to the news.
I wondered what you were doing. I saw you frantically making notes, trying to work out some kind of joke now, is what I guess it was. There were diagrams involved. You had a quick conversation with a couple of people.
It doesn't happen.
Yeah, the boys in the lab have been working on that one for weeks.
The magic needs to percolate. You know, it's all about perspiration and, you know, the rest of it. It's hard work what you're hearing right now. But the hard work's over, baby, because we're on to the news. They're fun and exciting and easygoing, free, exciting bit of the episode. And we're starting off with union busting, baby. That's right. It's Rockstar, makers of
sarcastically.
Rockstar, the makers of GTA, have absolutely put their stamp on being bad people. Famously, they have had some pretty notoriously terrible working conditions. I think back when Red Dead Redemption 2 came out, one of the houses, I think both of the houses have now left, so I guess we can't blame them for this anymore. But one of the houses, the two brothers who were like basically the big dogs of Rockstar, they have a whole interview where they boasted about how they did 100-hour work weeks. Didn't go down terribly well at the time. But it seems like that kind of attitude has remained. Because, as you might have heard us talk many times on the podcast about the IWGB Game Workers Union, they have been operating at Rockstar and trying to build up. And it seems like they were having some success until the 30th of October, the Thursday last week, when it was announced that 31 members of staff were being summarily fired from Rockstar North and 3 other members from Rockstar Canada. I don't know what they're called. The Canadian one is, but Rockstar North is the one in Edinburgh. And they coincidentally, apparently, completely coincidentally, they were all members of the nascent union that was building up in Rockstar. Now, it seems like it wasn't just a coincidence.
What are the odds?
Yeah, no, it wasn't just a coincidence that they were all, or let's say the coincidences build up because not only were the union growing within Rockstar, but they were approaching, or they had, in fact, I think just reached the 10% threshold, which is important in employment law because this now means that if they have 10% of the workforce unionized, the bosses are required by law to recognize that union. And just before that can happen, they fire 30 of them. Why did they fire them? Well, the reason given, I mean, I think we've got our suspicions of why they might have been fired, but the reason given was that they all committed gross misconduct. In specific, it was that they had...
Unionizing.
Convenient.
yeah. No, well, what they've said is that it's because they leaked confidential information onto what they call a public forum. Now, that sounds bad. They've just been spilling GTA secrets all over the internet. Well, it seems quite likely that the public forum they're referring to is, in fact, the private Discord that the employees of Rockstar were using to discuss union organizing with a couple of the workers at the IWGB. That is not, I would not I'm no legal expert. I wouldn't call that a public forum. And certainly it has been quite noticeable that despite this apparently hot button, it's worth remembering that an entire build or just extensive footage of GTA 6 already leaked a few years ago, like a very early version. I don't remember 30 employees getting fired back then, but like that was a huge deal and it was all over the internet immediately. It was rabid information about this, and that has not happened. If incredible information about this, the most anticipated game maybe ever, had been leaked onto a public forum, you would have thought we might have heard about it, but that hasn't happened. Another interpretation of events might be, for instance, that they fired these people because they were unionized. And even though apparently there were about 200 members of the union, because this is a colossal company making what is probably the most expensive video game ever made, almost certainly that's what it will end up being if it hasn't already passed that in the budget. Then, so there are 200 members, but like this now, one, kicks them under that threshold, and two, I mean, goes quite a long way, one would imagine, to, or at least one could presume that many of the existing people in Rockstar might be dissuaded from joining the union, knowing that Rockstar's happy to just fire them en masse for gross insubordination or gross misconduct, which has yet to be properly shown. So, obviously, the IWGB are not terribly pleased about this. Alex Marshall, the president of the IWGB, says, Rockstar has just carried out the most blatant and ruthless act of union busting in the history of the games industry. This flagrant contempt for the law and for the lives of the workers who bring in their billions is an insult to their fans and the global industry. Despite this calculated attack on workers organizing for a collective voice and to improve their difficult working conditions, the Rockstar Union remains undeterred. They will keep organizing for respect and better conditions while continuing to pour their blood, sweat, and creativity into the games that are loved by millions. The IWGB will pursue every legal claim possible to ensure our members are reinstated and receive interim relief. And Spring McPartland-Jones, who is the chair of the IWGB Game Workers Union, says, next year, Grand Theft Auto 6 is expected to make upwards of $10 billion. That's enough to end world hunger for a year. Such a flagrant attack on workers' rights from such a valuable studio sends a very clear and shocking message to the world that money matters more than people. I think I'm gonna go ahead and make the bold move of not consulting my comrades to say I would say that is overall the general opinion of the Red Barrels podcast as well. I don't think we're going to have much dissent here. Ed, you look like you're about to say something.
Yes. What I was about to say was basically fuck that shit. What a shitty
Fuck
behavior
that
from
shit.
Rockstar. Jesus
Yeah,
Christ.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's
of course.
unbelievable.
Red Barrel
I
send
hope-
their solidarity.
I hope
Yeah,
this was
100%
galvanizing in terms
Mm.
of like, kind of other sort of people working at Rockstar realizing that, it's, that their jobs are at risk whether or I guess it feels like their jobs are at risk whether or not they participate in a union if they're willing to sort of fire people this quickly and
Mhm.
come up with such bullshit excuses.
Mm.
So hopefully
Yeah.
it's galvanizing and cauterizing rather than threatening or off-putting. But obviously that is the intention behind doing it. But fuck that. It's so frustrating.
Fuck that.
Yeah, so I do recommend to our listeners, if they haven't already, they go to People Make Games, the YouTube channel. Friends of the show, though they may not be entirely aware of that yet. And they
It's a one-sided
literally-
friendship. It's fine.
Yeah, literally, as we record this, they just put out a video about this, and they go to they film at a protest outside of Rockstar North in Edinburgh of most well-wishers, but also the employees who have been fired.
Oh,
Out
very
the front.
nice. Ed is gesturing to his Edinburgh sweatshirt.
I see. Sorry,
Hoodie?
Representing.
I was too concentrated on my incredible speaking to notice that. And I think it was Alex Marshall actually who he mentioned. He spoke to who was spoken to there, and he mentioned that Rockstar will have baked in, bad PR from this and any potential effects that this might have on the game itself. And we'll be talking about that in a second. But what they probably haven't banked on is the fact that the bonds made in the company, that they've just seen all of their friends get fired for what I'm going to say appears to be quite bullshit reasons. And they won't have accounted for that the workforce of the company will probably have take a pretty dim view of what's happened.
Can I just interject? We said that People Make Games were friends of the pod, but we have mentioned this before, but we should probably also mention IWGB are kind of friends of the pod as well.
Yes,
or we've got friends in IWGB, so we should probably make that clear.
Yeah,
I was
so it's
also
very
very,
true.
Sorry, keep going, Alex.
I did also want to mention, just from a consumer point of view as well, that the IWGB's TikTok was popping off rather, because it was on my feed, even though I'd never interacted with them before. I don't think I'd interact. I mean, obviously I've interacted with union content before, but game union content in particular has not been really on my feed very much.
Yeah.
And the TikTok was sort of popping off. So
Yeah,
I think that's also great. It's really a good way to push, the vibe.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I will get onto that. That. Don't worry. But first, I just want to talk about this post on the GTA forums, which was verified by the forum staff as a legitimate, is basically a Rockstar employee. And also, I can say I have my own sources, and I have also confirmed that it was a Rockstar employee. It's quite a long post, but it's all about, because it basically a summary of what we've already said, how shit it is, how upset they are. It's worth saying that some of these people were on work visas in this country, which are now likely to get cancelled. So they might have to get literally deported because of what happened. There are people with some kind of health insurance or something that may be affected as well. So it's not even just employment that's the issue. But here's a little bit of what this guy said, or this person, I should say. We don't know anything about them really, beyond the fact they're an employee of Rockstar. There were over 250 of us in that union/employee Discord group. There is fear that if they get away with this, they'll have nothing stopping them from doing this again and again. Those of us who are lucky and remain for now work in fear. Fearful when talking to each other at the tea prep, fearful that we're next in line and are easily got rid of, too scared to go outside the studio and talk to or even acknowledge our colleagues outside, protesting in fear of reprisals. Morale in the studio is at rock bottom. When we should be excited about what's to come over the next year, we are now totally deflated, and our trust and confidence in others is totally shot, which is the truly heartbreaking part. As for us in the union, all of our ambition was to make Rockstar a happier, fairer, safer, and more equitable place. That's all. What has happened, it clearly shows that we care more about the well-being of our colleagues at Rockstar than the company does. The union remains unbound and is fighting to win the reinstatement of every dismissed member of staff at Rockstar through legal means and campaigning. This fight is critical. If Rockstar can get away with it, they will keep treating their workers with disdain, disrespect, and subjecting them to continued legal treatment. They also give a link, which I will put in the show notes for the podcast, of a fundraiser for basically money for the IWGB. I guess it's not a strike fund because they're not going on strike yet. Who knows? But, to help pay for these legal fees and other fees. And, if you spare some money, maybe you might want to consider donating to that. As Sofie said, that one thing that is quite heartening about this is that has been quite a lot of, it seems like pretty much almost the entire feeling I've seen on the internet, not just from lefty types like us, but from GTA fans and so on, has really been with the workers here. I managed to get myself on GTA fan Twitter, and pretty universally, everyone's on the side of the workers and think that Rockstar is bad for doing this. And these are people who are hardly doctrinaire Marxists. They're just fans of the game who want to see it come out. And you're right. I've been seeing a lot. Frankly, game workers unions is not a terribly sexy subject at times, and the social media stuff for things previous to this have not set the world alight. But there's been a real engagement with stuff about this, and it really feels like this is, maybe a moment that's putting the IWGB game workers kind of on the map, frankly. I'd like, ideally, this would, galvanize the industry and this would be the start of something big. Who knows if it will. That would be the dream, though. But it does seem like it has the potential to be something like that. And it's worth saying that this all went on a few days later. On the 6th of November, Rockstar came out and announced that GTA 6 will be delayed. It was originally going to be the 26th of May next year. It is now the 19th of November next year. So pretty much a whole year from right now is when that game will come out, assuming it doesn't get delayed again. Now, my suspicion is they announced this delay essentially as an attempt to quash talk about this union stuff. Like, basically wash away the headlines. But it seems to me that it's
Dead cat.
Yeah, dead cat, basically. Sort of, yeah. But it seems like that may have backfired on them because, to be honest, I imagine it's more complicated than that. But an easy interpretation is that they fired 30 crucial team members for not a real reason, and now the game's going to take longer to make because of that, because they're either going to have to hire new people who have to be trained, or the people who work there are going to have to work even a lot harder, and the game will take longer. So that's a pretty easy way of interpreting that, even though I think it's probably more complicated. And my suspicion was that it was going to get delayed before this happened anyway, but it's an easy connection for people to make. So this now is like, well, maybe you shouldn't have fired all those people. It's actually galvanized people even further towards the workers. And so it seems like kind of a PR blunder on their part, to be honest, to have followed these up so quickly. So yeah, it's shit news, but there is, I think, a wider, a bit of a silver lining of just that. It really does seem like, I don't think people would consider the GTA fan community to be a hotbed of political progressivism. I don't think that's where you'd look for. It's not the fucking Disco Elysium fan community. But the fact that people were so, in general, there are a couple of weirdos, but in general, seemed so immediately on the side of the workers and the union was really quite heartening to see. And hopefully that kind of vibe can continue. And we absolutely wish all the members, including the fired ones, of the Game Workers Union at Rockstar full solidarity. And if you work at Rockstar and you aren't in that union, you should join it. You just got to keep shit secret for now. And definitely consider that fundraiser. So, on that generally quite bad news, let's have some more of it. Let's bring on the bad news.
Let's have some more bad news.
Let's just wallow in negativity for a while. And who better to bring us negativity with Soph?
We can afford it. Mamdani won, so we've got
Exactly.
the morale. We've got the morale to be a little bit
Exactly.
downtrodden, I think.
We communized New York, so
Yeah, we communized New York.
We
That's my mayor. I live in London. We've got the morale, so let's get shitty. Let's get depressed. So no. But yeah, basically sort of continuing the trend of cuts made across the gaming industry last and this year. Amazon and its gaming division in particular has decided to cut approximately 14,000 roles in its gaming division global workforce. A memo released to Amazon staff initially reviewed by Bloomberg states that the company, quote, is leaning into the things that Amazon does best, unquote, and that it will, quote, halt a significant amount, unquote, of first-party MMO development. An affected worker wrote on a now deleted LinkedIn post that they, alongside their, quote, incredibly talented peers, unquote, on New World and the still developing Lord of the Rings MMO, both MMOs, I believe, had been laid off, implying a significant impact to the future of these games in particular. Amazon did not have a successful entry into the video games market, with its free-to-play shooter Crucible being cancelled only 5 months after its release in 2020.
Don't we all remember Crucible? Don't we remember those crazy
We all
Crucible
remember
months? We all
Crucible.
remember
Love
that.
that
We all
game.
loved it. Loved
Kind
it.
of
Incredible.
shocking. Kind of shocking that like a multiplayer free-to-play shooter that didn't pop off in 2020 when everyone was at home.
Yeah.
So that is like uniquely bad as well. Amazon is now on its second attempt at a Lord of the Rings MMO after its first attempt, announced in 2019, became too quote-unquote complicated and is now set to be developed by Chinese publisher Tencent. Yeah, according to a game development conference survey a little bit earlier this year, it reports that 1 in 10 developers have lost their job over the last year. The most prominent reason, according to those who were laid off, were made up of, quote, restructuring, declining revenues, market or industry shifts, with 19% of people laid off that responded to the survey saying that they weren't even provided a reason at all. The sort of threat of AI is also kind of looming there, but that's obviously not any sort of official reason that people have been given for the layoffs. Amazon also just sort of cited that it wants to I guess the reasons that they gave were also similarly sort of inscrutable and vague. But yeah, I guess they're still sort of planning on working on their New World and Lord of the Rings MMO. I think that's the only games we know that are in development at the moment, but that's probably going to be pretty slow.
New World, they've canned it, mate.
Oh yes, they canned it. Yes, you're right. Yes,
it.
they did. Yes, they did.
Yeah, they
It's
officially
dead.
announced they're not
It's
going to
dead,
update it,
Dave.
right? You can still play it, I think, but
Yeah.
it's not going to be
Yeah,
Yes,
updated.
you can still play it. Kind of relevant to my story in a way, but yes,
Yeah.
they've said that you'll be able to continue playing it through 2026, and that's all they've really said on the matter.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not a very long commitment.
No.
But they've also announced there'll be no more content, and the last content that came out is the last content that will ever come out. So
Yeah.
who could
Yeah.
say?
Just seems like they're not very good at games, to be honest.
There is an interesting phenomenon of like these big tech companies that are like, we're going to get into games and just seemingly just having no idea what to do. I mean, it feels like to me that like the obvious move would be just to make some like expensive but like high profile kind of prestige-y games to start with, just to like basically get like recognition as like a good company that makes good games, and then make your fucking, service game that lasts forever and just prints money, just so at least you can get some goodwill under your belt, and then they just don't know how to do that. Yeah,
But just put gambling in video games. That's how you make money.
Yeah,
Loot
you got to
boxes.
make your original Counter-Strike
Yeah.
before you can make your Counter-Strike
Yeah.
Global Offensive.
yeah.
And then destroy everyone's life savings by
Exactly. Yeah,
crashing the knife market
Gambling.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Gambling.
exactly. I mean, Bungie's got to make Halo before it makes Destiny.
Yeah, exactly.
That's basically all the info I have. Just sort of more job cuts in the industry. It's not surprising. We've obviously been seeing it. Like I said, 1 in 10 developers have lost their job in the last year, which is crazy. That's a crazy statistic. Yeah,
it's
unionize. Guys, unionize.
But
Get
like in
yourselves into a
secret,
union.
in secret.
Yeah, in secret. Secretly unionize.
Don't let the bosses find out about your Discord where you've been doing nothing, but they can use it as an excuse to can you.
Unionize in secret until you're powerful enough that they can't stop you. That's what you gotta do.
I wonder when this trend will end. You know, we sort of have identified the basic capitalist dynamics which are leading to these layoffs, but obviously those same dynamics have been at play for, you know, the decades the game industry's been around.
Yeah.
It feels like we're in obviously a specifically bad few years right now where the games industry is really crushing the people that make it. Like it can only. It doesn't feel like it's a very sustainable situation. I mean, is this linked to the AI bubble? Like, is that part of what's happening?
Well,
Like,
I mean, I was thinking, like,
you
the
know, you're
AI
seeing-
bubble seems like it's primed to pop.
It's gonna pop anytime
yes,
soon.
and
yeah.
what effect will that have on the
I
games
mean, I'm sure that'll
industry?
cause, like, at minimum, a recession, if not, like, fucking worse. That probably won't be great. But at the same time, I kind of wonder if AI's just been sucking up all the fucking air out of the room. And if that bursts, then maybe that would actually be good for the games industry. I don't know.
Yeah, it might be. I feel like a lot of developers are getting really high on the idea of AI, like even more, like much more so than its current promise. I mean, EA have announced a partnership with Stability AI and have apparently been really pressuring their employees to use AI for basically everything and more or less to train the AI to do their jobs for them, according to
Jesus fucking Christ. That's such an EA thing to do.
according to Business Insider.
I mean,
they all
the
do
good news
nervous.
is it's not going to work, and it's just going to waste a shitload of money,
just
which is
gonna
like
be
basically what's
bad.
happening.
Yeah.
You say that, but EA, they make what? FIFA, they make Sims, Madden.
Not very
How much
discerning
creativity
customers.
is
You're right.
If any games can be AI-ified,
That's true.
It's Sims 4 DLCs. No, but in all seriousness, yes, that's
Not very discerning clientele.
a
let's put it that
self-defeating.
way. Mm.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's say some less negative news. I mean, I hesitate to say good news, but look, listener, I'll give you a glimpse behind the curtain. We try, you try and end these news bits on a bit of like a bit of a lighter note, and like this is the best we got. Ed, what have you got?
Well, I wouldn't go so far as to say a lighter note, but
I mean, to be fair,
I
last
want to give an
time we
update.
ended the news on the death of someone, so we don't
That's
keep
true.
to that. We don't keep to that religiously, so it's all
No,
right.
we do
It's
not.
all right.
So, yeah, I wanted to give an update on the Stop Killing Games campaign, which we've covered a couple of times so far in this show. We have covered it in, let me just tell you that right now, in episodes 12 and episode 13, if you want to hear our previous takes on it. You may remember that, so to give you a brief overview, the campaign is around end of life in video games. There's this tendency for companies to pull the plug on various video games and then they become literally unplayable, like especially online games or games that are required to be online for various reasons. And this campaign is about pushing for there to be a legal mandate to make games continue to be playable even after companies have decided it's no longer profitable, or not profitable necessarily, but not maximally profitable for them to keep those games alive. So that could look like patching a game so that it's playable offline, or it could look like allowing fans access to source code, or it could be letting fans run private servers. It could be a whole variety of things. And there's been some highly successful, in terms of the numbers of people involved, petitions to various governmental bodies. The main one I'm going to be talking about today is the UK government one. About 190,000 people have signed that petition, which led the UK government to issue a statement in February saying there are no plans to amend UK consumer law on disabling video games. Those selling games must comply with existing requirements in consumer law, and we will continue to monitor this issue. So not particularly world-breaking, basically saying we're not going to do anything about it. The update that I want to report on, though, is that this topic was debated in Parliament in, I think, Westminster Hall, actually, on the 3rd of November. So, and I tried to watch it. It actually wouldn't work for me earlier. I don't know why that was the case. But what I have done is I've read through the entire transcript, and I wanted to give you guys a sense of how that discussion went, because I thought it was kind of an interesting insight to see how these like lawmakers, these policy creators would be talking about an issue that's quite close to our hearts. So the session lasted an hour. There were multiple MPs involved talking about their experiences of gaming. Lots of strategy games, actually, they talked about, was my observation. We got an Age of Empires reference. We got a Victoria reference. They talked about how big an industry gaming was. The quote, the video game industry contributes £7.6 billion to the UK economy and supports more than 75,000 jobs. So I think initially, I think I was pleasantly surprised by the sort of tone. And I think that the main people involved in that debate did seem quite well educated on it, more than I might have expected. And I do think, I got the impression that a lot of these people, they do play video games. They have played the video games. They weren't just referencing the most mainstream thing in the world like you might do if they were handed a note by their special advisor just before this briefing to make it look like they played video games and were relatable. Referencing the previous topic, for example, the Dundee Central MP Chris Law was present, and it was referenced. Dundee, I believe, is where Rockstar was originally founded. I believe that's true.
Yeah,
and it was certainly that's what they referenced in the session. And they referenced the fact that the cultural relevance of GTA is never ending. When the next title in the series is released, it will be bigger than any movie that has ever been released in the United Kingdom, if not the world. So, they were taking seriously how big of a sector this is, at least the people in that room.
Mm-hmm.
They also talked about streaming, which I found entertaining. I particularly enjoyed this quote from Ben Goldsborough MP. Quote, "We've seen what is possible when communities are empowered. When Doom was released decades ago, it sparked an entire ecosystem of mods, creativity, and eventually genre-defining innovation. We also see it with ROM hacking communities, especially around older titles such as Super Mario World. I'm the first to admit that I cannot play Katsuo Mario World for toffee. Those levels are punishing. But I do enjoy watching streamers such as Barbarous King both creating the Grand Poo World trilogy. This is the first time Hansa has had to write that down, and playing it live. That highlights yet another modern element of gaming culture. Streaming. Platforms such as Twitch have turned gameplay into performance art, commentary, and community. People gather to cheer, learn, laugh, and share. This too is culture, and it deserves to be safeguarded." That's the end of the quote.
Kaizo Mario
I think I
was
could hear your reaction
in fucking
in
Hands.
Yeah,
that is the weirdest
Yeah,
thing I've ever heard in my life.
That's pretty
Jesus.
I had to
charming.
read that out because
Barbarous King, I
It
watch
was-
him
yeah.
sometimes. That's fucking weird. This dude's a real gamer. Which party is he
this
in?
guy is a real gamer. He was Labour.
Yeah.
Boo.
I mean, he's
Yeah.
probably not in the SCG. I might have heard about that.
Yes. So, very interesting. And yes, I was, pleasantly surprised by the fact that these people did, some of them at least, seem to be like they actually were.
I mean, that guy knows his stuff. There's no getting around
gamers.
it.
Yeah, exactly. They mentioned the petition itself a few times. Obviously, the multiple references to the 190,000 people showing the strength of force in the country, and
Mhm.
also a reference to the 1.4 million signatures that the equivalent one has had in the EU, which on the EU point, actually, the European arm of the Stop Killing Games campaign has verified over half of its signatures now with very, very low rejection rate. They said, which means basically that it means that over 15 countries have met the threshold where this should be debated in the EU. So things are moving forward pretty positively with the EU branch of this campaign. And apparently the campaign is in discussion with various MEPs and lobby groups and academics and all those kind of people to see what they can do there. But back to the UK, there were conversations about the various options that Stop Killing Games could go with, about allowing private servers, offline play, or at the very least notifying people before the game how long that the game will be supported for. Was a thing that was proposed. So it's not wholly satisfying as far as I'm concerned, but there is something there, I suppose. Pam Cox MP for Colchester put the position quite well after noting that Colchester is playable in Assassin's Creed Valhalla. She said,
it is.
the Stop Killing Games... It is.
And Grimsby.
She said the Stop Killing Games movement highlights the growing frustration among players who see their purchases vanish. It is clear that digital ownership must be respected and that publishers should look to provide routes for players to retain or repair games, even if the official service support for products ends. I welcome the government's willingness to monitor the issue, not least because current laws, such as the Consumer Rights Act, clearly do not offer adequate consumer protections against digital obsolescence. And Mark Seward, MP, noted, we're not talking about a small, powerless industry. We're talking about publishers that generated a combined total of $455 billion in revenue last year, accounting for all types of gaming. By most industry measures, the global video game sector is now larger than the film and music industries combined. So again, I'm sort of impressed by the gravity with which some of the people involved in the debate were talking about it. They also, one MP, Tom Gordon, brought up the EA buyout, which again shows a certain amount of awareness of what's going on in the gaming space. To quote him, quote, in my speech, I talked about the recent buyout of EA. Part of the investment by the consortium is taking on large amounts of debt. Profitable games such as FIFA and other titles will now have to find money to service that debt. Does the honourable gentleman share my concerns that equity companies and capital buying up games might hinder the market? And that's the point we kind of made when we were talking about it to some extent, or part of it. So it is good to see that there. Although to undermine it a little bit, the response basically ignored the question. The response to this was from Joe Robertson MP, who said, quote, the honourable gentleman makes a perfectly valid point with which I sympathise. It's certainly true that there are a number of different game providers and some are backed by large amounts of money and debt. Great, thank you very much. That was what he said.
Just said.
And then he just moved on.
Thank you for sharing.
That is a thing that happened. Thank you for sharing. And that does kind of bring us back to the reality of why this is not really a good news story. While there was a lot of enthusiasm for the ideas expressed in the petition by some of the MPs in the debate, and that was refreshing to see, the ultimate conclusion of the discussion came from Stephanie Peacock MP, who's the Undersecretary for the Department of Culture, Media and Sport. And the upshot of her conclusion is that she thought that the existing legislation might require clearer communication from companies, and that's basically it. Clearer communication. To quote her, UK law is very clear. It requires information to consumers to be clear and correct. The government are clear that the law works, but companies might need to communicate better. So with regards to end quote. So with regards to actually demanding games remain playable, she had various reasons why she thought that they couldn't demand that. Here, and I'll give you some of the reasons just so we can look at them here. She said there were technical problems with making that demand. Quote, for games whose systems have specifically designed for an online experience, this would not be possible without major redevelopment. Requiring an end-of-life plan for all games would fundamentally change how games are developed and distributed. If they prove to be too risky or burdensome, this could discourage the innovation that is the beating heart of this art form. So those are the technical problems. She also highlighted legal problems. Quote, if an end-of-life plan involves handing over online services to consumers, it's not clear who would be responsible for regulatory compliance or for payments to third parties that provide core services. It could also result in reputational harm for video game businesses that no longer officially support their games if illegal or harmful activity take place.
Boo-hoo.
And yeah, what a tragedy. And then the final argument that she had for why we shouldn't do Stop Killing Games is what she said is the most important, online safety. Quote, finally, and perhaps most importantly from the perspective of gamers, a citation needed, there are safety and security plans impacts to consider. Under the Online Safety Act 2023, video game companies, they fucking love it. Video game companies are responsible for controlling exposure to harmful content in their games. Removing official moderation from servers or enabling community-hosted servers increases the risks that users, including children, could be exposed to such content. Security threats could also be more likely if the player data is no longer protected on official servers. And those are the three problems she highlights, and she concludes with a government line, which is the following. Although the government are of course supportive of businesses that are able to implement end-of-life plans voluntarily, we do not think that a blanket requirement is proportionate or in the interests of businesses or consumers.
Shut up.
Our role is to ensure those selling and purchasing games are clear about their obligations and protections under UK consumer law.
Shut up.
Yeah. So, and she did the official things, the actual things that they committed to are that they recognise the concerns of gamers.
Thanks
they want
for
to make sure
sharing.
that what they're purchasing is sufficiently clear. So with that in mind, the Department of Culture, Media and Sport have engaged the Chartered Trading Standards Institute who maintain the Business Companion Guide to businesses on complying with consumer law in relation to digital content. So following the debate, they'll be asked to consider putting together guidance to businesses to help ensure that information provided to consumers accurately reflects protections. So thank God for that.
It
sounds like she's done a sterling job.
History's greatest pamphlet. Amazing.
Exactly. It's going to be incredible. So while I thought the standard of the debate was higher than I expected, the conclusion is pretty unsatisfactory.
Yeah.
It's obviously true that some games or some companies could find it more difficult than others to provide a suitable end-of-life situation. But given the range of things that supporting end-of-life might look like, it seems there's options available for most scenarios. For instance, an MMO could release the source code and allow for private servers. to account for indie developers, for instance, you could put rules in saying this legislation applies to companies of a certain size, whether that's in terms of employees or in terms of their revenue, or there could even be like an acknowledged opt-out process that could be included. Basically, it seems like, it would be possible to imagine situations in which this legislation wouldn't be good, but also the legislation would be good in the vast majority of cases. I don't think that that's a good reason to not introduce the legislation. That's a good reason to make sure that the legislation is sufficiently, is defined with sufficient clarity and that it's clear what you should do when those exceptions arise. So I was very unsatisfied by that response. I think that was my response to her problems that she highlighted. They don't to the technical problems anyway. The technical problems, some technical problems would apply. Is that a good reason to not do it? No. As for her legal questions and safety questions, I'm not a legal expert, but the answer seems relatively straightforward to me. The company that allows private servers, surely it would be relatively intuitive to say that they're not responsible for the stuff that the people who host those servers
It's all feeling
host.
very company uwu, so small company uwu. Like, what are we supposed to do? We're just a little company.
Yeah, we can't provide
also,
an end-of-life
there are a
pass.
bunch of companies that have allowed
That
their
have done this
users
stuff,
to set up their own servers and stuff, and no one has ever suggested that they would get in legal trouble if, I don't know, someone planned a terrorist bombing on a fucking Doom message board or something, just like...
Yeah.
Seems ridiculous. I wonder, like, the double-edged sword of the fact that, like, oh, wow, I'm genuinely impressed that these MPs had pretty good knowledge of games. Wow, that's such a difference from just a few years ago. But it occurs to me the reason that's different is because probably if they're young enough to know that enough about games, and not even that young anymore, but by parliamentary standards, pretty young.
Okay, like if you're Gen X, you'll know about video games. Is the thing. Yeah.
Well, not Gen X, but millennials, basically getting into.
Yeah, I mean, the probably the most vocal guy in the debate, as I said, was that Ben Goldsborough guy. He is 35.
Yeah.
So
and
very young for an MP.
Our age.
And that means that he's most likely part of the Labour intake in 2024, and that means that he's somewhere on a spectrum of the most horrible Labour right ghoul you can imagine to a massive sheep who'll just do what he's told. And that's basically your options of that intake. So that's probably who all the gamers in Parliament are going to be, unfortunately. So I imagine there's not going to be a huge amount of movement on it.
Could well be right there, I'm afraid.
Well, I think with that, we might be done. I think we're done. I will say,
I think we're done.
listeners,
I think we're probably done.
as we record this, we are 15 minutes away from a Sony State of Play being broadcast, where they announce games and stuff. So if they might announce the most incredible thing anyone has ever seen, and it seems ridiculous that we have not discussed this, that's why it hasn't happened yet. But maybe we'll talk about it next time, or maybe we won't because there wasn't anything of interest. We'll see. But it will be, as I said, our 1-year anniversary. So, I think you might want to consider adding us into your wills based on that, I
Especially
know
after you hear the next episode, it's going to be a real
exactly
banger.
But I think as a 1-year anniversary,
Sort of the least you could do, isn't it?
Just add us into your wills. Write a will.
Just
I'm
give us
sure
some
all
money.
of you have wills that you've written up with a solicitor. Just add us in. Add us in. He's our antique furniture executor of your estate.
Grandmother's jewelry.
Just add him to the Red Barrels podcast. Just do that. Why not?
We're less interested in your Counter-Strike knives now, though. So
exactly.
I'm good.
You know, we deserve it. And as Sophie alluded to, when you hear that episode, you will kick yourselves for not having done that because it's going to be. We genuinely are planning a bit of a special episode. Hopefully, it comes together if you get to next time, and it's just a normal episode. It all fell through.
Forget we said this.
Don't worry about it. But it looks like it will be a good one, and I'm looking forward to it. I think you two are looking forward to it, and you, the listener, should all look forward to it. But for now, we are going to get into the credits. As always, we beg you on our hands and knees, just before you add us to your will, first, share us on social media, review us on iTunes and Spotify. On social media, you can find us at redbarrelspod on Twitter, and on Blue Sky at redbarrelspodcast.bsky.social. For me personally, you can find me on Twitter at AlexDean, ALEXDUIN, and on Blue Sky it's the same, but .bsky.social. Sophie, how can people find you, track you down on the internet, observe you every waking moment?
I stream on Twitch 3 days a week now. I'm not streaming on Sundays anymore because I'm tired and burnt out. So I stream 3 days a week from 1 p.m. GMT on twitch.tv/sofreely, SOFREELY.
There was something I really know. Before you go to Ed, I would say there was something I forgot to mention last time, which is that you've recently produced another thing, I believe.
Oh, yes, I produced a new song. Is that what you're talking about? Yes. I do have a new song out called MPDG. You can probably search MPDG so freely on wherever you listen to your music. I think it's a banger. Give it a listen. Why not?
Yeah.
What
I
else
have to
do you have
admit,
to do?
I forgot to listen to it. I will listen to it tonight. But I remember to say it now, but I forgot to listen to it on Spotify. I'm sorry.
Fair.
I'm sorry. I'm sure it's a banger. Your other song genuinely is very good. Very good.
Thank you.
I have no doubt that this one will in fact be, as you describe, a banger.
Thanks
Ed,
so much.
I
What's your other
don't know if
song
you've
called?
released any new music, have you?
No, not since my 90s period.
Oh.
I've stepped away from that scene.
Fair enough.
But you can find me on X, apparently, at Still Not a Lemon, and you can find me on Blue Sky at Not a Lemon.
That's great. And as I said, gird your loins for the 1-year anniversary of the Red Barrel podcast. Next time.
You really have a way with words, Alex.
You just always
it's
go one
important they're
step
girded.
too
It's
far.
important they're girded. Probably at all times, but especially for this.
One step.
One little
I
step.
almost forgot. The theme song, speaking of music, the theme song is from Brilliant Drink, as always, and it's always a brilliant drink of audio in your ears.
Wow.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I do have a way with words. It's true, Ed.
Little sip in your ear canal.
But
Delicious.
we are now done. We are now really done.
We're done.
So,
The podcast is over.
So you're welcome. I will be saying goodbye, and my comrades will be saying
Bye. That was really poorly out of sync that time.
Yeah,
All
that's
right,
okay.
it's
I
all
made
right.
it quite
I
long
fix
so we
it.
can be
I fix
synced.
it.
Here we go.
Believe
we can
me,
fix it.
it's out of sync every single time. Don't worry about it.